On this episode of Locked On Angels, the best part about baseball is that there are games almost every single day. So when you get blown out like the Halos did on Tuesday, you get a chance to redeem yourself like they did last night. They got a win, lots of offense, 2 home runs from Mike Trout. And we've got 5 things to tell you about from this game that we're going to share with you right now. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John. And this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase.
Happy Thursday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
We're talking Angels baseball with you Monday through Friday, every single weekday. Thank goodness they had a big win to erase and flush that awful loss on Tuesday night. But on today's show, we're sharing what Nolan Schanuel had to say about the lineup, why he likes Mike Trout hitting behind him, and then the players were asked about how they felt when their manager gets ejected and how it impacts the game. So we'll hear about their responses, and of course, we'll get into a discussion about that as well. Mike, we're giving our 5 takeaways for Game 3 as the Angels win a roller coaster of a game. It was an 11-8 final score, thanks to Jorge Soler putting up a 2-run home run, Nolan Schanuel adding on, and Taylor Ward also tying the game with a 2-run single the opposite way. So just a lot of back and forth in this one. Felt like the old games between the Rangers and the Angels at Globe Life Park, where they would just hit the ball out of the yard like a million times in one game. In the days of Kendrys Morales and Adrian Beltre, right? Those guys pouring on the offense. That's what this one felt like. So how do they win in this one?
Well, you mentioned it, John. They had a couple of big hits late in the game. Bottom 8, Yohan Moncada. He singles on the first pitch, and he just hit it where they weren't. And the shortstop was playing close to second base, and he just hit it off the end of the bat. It was a off-speed pitch that he hit into left field. And then Jorge Soler, he got all of this one. He hit a 2-run home run deep to left field, 421 feet.
That was a cookie.
If you've been at Angel Stadium, there's the seats that are right by the foul pole. Then there's this gap where they come out and walk out from the bullpen. And then, of course, the bullpen. That ball went over that gap and hit the back sign of that opening. It was a massive home run. His 10th of the year, 107.2 off the bat. And then, John, the Angels weren't done. Zach Neto singles. He's still second. And then, while he's trying to steal third, Schanuel does what Yohan Moncada did earlier, and he just hits it where they ain't. And the third baseman went to go and cover third base, and Schanuel hit the ball right where he was. And Neto, because he was running, he ended up scoring on that play. So that's how the Angels ended up winning the game. We've got 5 takeaways from this game, John, and we obviously have a really important takeaway to start the conversation. So why don't you take that one?
Yeah, Mike Trout homers twice in this one. And it was the first time in the bottom of the third to center field, his 393rd home run, and it tied him with Jim Edmonds for 63rd all-time, former Halo, of course, as well. It was a 2-run home run because Rengifo was on with a double. Then in the bottom of the 5th, Trout hit his second home run to right field. He has 16 home runs on the season, 394 on his career, 6 away from 400. It was his 3rd multi-home run game of the season. The last one was April 19th when I was in person for my buddy's birthday against the Giants, and he hit that huge one that I think is still the longest home run this season. Matt Birch, who does the Angels communications, he said this is the second time having a game-tying and go-ahead home run in the same game for Mike Trout. He also did it almost exactly 10 years ago on July 8th, 2015 in Colorado. So just a big night for Mike Trout, able to see him do some damage. Really wanted that third one. He's never had a 3-homer night, and it looked like he might have had it, but it was just off the inside of the bat a little bit, so he flew out to center field. But all in all, a great night for Mike Trout.
Second takeaway is the Angels score 35% of the time in the next inning after their opponents score. And they did it 3 times last night, John. Bottom 3, Travis d'Arnaud singles. Luis Rengifo hits a double. Then Nolan Schanuel follows with a sacrifice fly after Zach Neto struck out, and it was a productive out. And then Mike Trout, speaking of being productive, hit his first of his 2 home runs in that inning. But then Taylor Ward follows with a walk. Joe Adell then doubles Taylor Ward in. John, he's reached base now in 20 consecutive games.
Love it.
The Angels, again, came back, bottom 7 after being down by 2 because the Rangers scored 2 in the top of the 7th. Taylor Ward hits a 2-out, 2-run single to tie the game at 8 at that point. It was a single to right field. Great piece of hitting by Taylor Ward. Happened because Rengifo reached on an error. It was a little ground ball that the pitcher and the first baseman just couldn't get on the same page with, trying to pick it up, didn't pick it up. And then Neto singles. And then talk about productive outs. Mike Trout hit that sac fly, that long fly out to center that you talked about. It was a sac fly that moved the runners from first and second to second and third. Looked like he got all of it, but then it was about warning track power, but it was enough to move those runners over. And then the Angels responded again after the Rangers scored, and it was in the top of the 4th inning. And then the bottom of the 4th inning, they came back, and it was a Travis d'Arnaud hit that got them going. His hit was a home run, his 6th home run of the season. Now, John, these stats from Sam Blum are pretty interesting. He tweeted that since May 8th, Travis d'Arnaud is slashing .272 with an .893 OPS, 6 home runs, 15 RBIs, and 84 plate appearances. Logan O'Hoppe, who didn't play last night, obviously, since May 25th, a .164 batting average and a .449 OPS, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs, and 113 plate appearances. Listen, we are O'Hoppe fans on this show, but Travis d'Arnaud is a bat that maybe you should be riding right now just because he's hot and he's somebody that is making contact. He's not just swinging and missing. And I know that our contention on this show is to give O'Hoppe at bats because he needs to develop and grow, but maybe this might be a time where you give him some time to rest. You have the All-Star break, and then he can reset his mind. But Travis d'Arnaud right now, he's on a heater because he's really been good behind the plate and at the dish.
Yeah, he does this a lot during the season. He'll go on a nice little run here. So I think you're right. I think for Logan to have a reset and kind of work on some things, I think would be beneficial to him. I noticed, and so did an everydayer, and the conversation originally started with Sister Swilly, Swilly Sports, noticing how tall Logan was in the box. And it seemed like he went back to that again. And an everydayer on Twitter pointed that out as well. So you just wonder if there's something there, because the night that he hit those 2 home runs after he had been struggling is a little more crouched down, Mike. So I hope that somebody can point that out. Maybe the O'Hoppes who are listening to the show or watching the show. Angela, tell your son that he needs to crouch down. John said so. All right. Let's take it to the third takeaway. Kyle Hendricks was just no good last night. Just 3 2/3 innings, 6 hits, 5 runs, 1 walk, 3 Ks on 74 pitches. Didn't get the edges of the zone like he usually does, and that's when he has the most success, and he needs to be able to do that in order to be successful. Gave up the lead in the top of the 4th after a single and 2 stolen bases for the Rangers. Hendricks got the ground ball back at him, tried to throw the runner out at home, threw it away, and he gave up an RBI to the next batter and was taken out of the game. Mike, I think it's interesting that Kyle Hendricks, he does not have a lot of velo. And so I don't think that stealing against him, running on him is a problem. And we saw that was evident in this one. But again, he was taken out of the game, which brings us to our 4th takeaway. Ray Montgomery had his wash moment, if you will.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
No.
He went to the mound to visit Kyle Hendricks in the top of the 4th. A lefty was coming up, and Brock Burke was warming up in the bullpen. Montgomery left Hendricks in the game to face Josh Smith, who's a lefty, with 2 outs in the inning. Hendricks gave up an RBI double, and the Rangers took the lead at the time. Did this feel like a wash moment, or should it have been an analytics moment? Because remember, they had a moment earlier this week when Brock was warming up, and they didn't go to the bullpen to get him because Ryan Goins didn't make the move. He was the manager at the time because Montgomery had been ejected. So, Mike, was it a wash moment, or should it have been a, pen and paper nerd glasses moment? What do you say?
I just think you got to know who you are as a player, but you also got to know who you are as a manager. And Ray's an analytics guy, right? Don't be wash. And I know we talked about him yesterday, and we're like, hey man, we like those wash moments. Yes, I like those wash moments, but
when they're done by wash,
yes, you can't be who you're not, right? And in that moment, you needed to go to somebody else. And here's why, because Kyle Hendricks was not hitting the zones. He was not getting the calls, the shadow zone, the shadow area, the edges of the zone. The ump was just not giving that to him. And so those are the things you have to pay attention to. So you should have gone and got him in that moment, not let him continue in that inning. Now, previously, they've taken him out because he was going to hit the third time through the order, but he was doing really well. And so if they're going to make an analytical move at that point, then you got to make an analytical move at this point last night in the game, and they just didn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Final takeaway, a failed review costs the Halos a run in the top of the sixth. Sam Bachman on the mound, and Wyatt Langford was at first. Bachman picks him off, but Langford is called safe, and the Angels challenge. Mike, the call stands when it's obvious to everybody that he was out. And I tweeted from Locked On Angels, what's worse, the replay review room in New York or Spectrum customer service? And I was happy to realize that I was not alone in my disdain for Spectrum customer support, because they keep you on the phone for an hour plus before you even get a call. But I thought that they equal each other, because that was just terrible. Then with 2 outs, the Rangers tie the game, knock Bachman out. Detmers entered and got the final out of the 6th. Unfortunately, in the top of the 7th, he allowed a 2-run home run to Marcus Semien and gave up the lead. It's the first time Detmers allowed a run since May 17th. Well, I think we'll give him a pass on that one, Michael, considering he's been elite since then. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, Nolan Schanuel shared why he likes having Mike Trout hit behind him in the lineup. Don't mess with it. Don't touch it. Leave it the way that it is. That's what Nolan says. We're going to tell you all about it coming right up.
How about some tickets? Well, at Gametime, get you some tickets to go see your favorite team, the Halos. They're the easiest way to grab those last-minute tickets if you're thinking about going at the last minute. And the money you save, man, you can get food, you can get helmet nachos, you can get some memorabilia. Gametime's making it really easy for you to buy those tickets, making it fast, super simple. Prices on the app, they drop the closer you get to first pitch. And if you've got maybe some time and you want to go to a game, those last-minute deals are fantastic, and they have a lowest price guarantee on Gametime. In fact, Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, so let them help you out, Angel fans, everydayers. Let them help you out, get you to a game. Download the app, create an account, use our promo code $20, Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the Gametime app, use our promo code Locked On MLB. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Recently, we discussed moving Trout to the top of the order because of his on-base percentage. And entering last night's game, he's got a .351 on-base percentage. However, for the month of June, it was .422, Mike. That's just elite on-base percentage. In July so far, coming into last night's game, his on-base percentage is .405. I'll say it because I say it all the time, and I think it's a really good anecdote. The way you feel about a 300 average is the way you should feel about a 400 on base and a 500 slugging. So Trout is getting on base a lot, and that's what you hope from him and for a leadoff guy. And the idea we had was that we would move Trout to leadoff and maybe have Neto hitting behind Schanuel. But how would Schanuel feel about that move, Mike? What do you say?
Well, no judgment of Zach Neto, but according to Nolan Schanuel, he really prefers Mike Trout to stay where he is in the lineup. And
who wouldn't?
The reason is obvious. It's because of how Schanuel's being pitched right now. He said teams are pitching him and trying to get him out so that they don't have to face Mike Trout. And then Trout does what he did last night, which was fantastic. So due to that, Nolan said, I'm seeing a whole lot more pitches in the strike zone, and it's giving me more opportunity to do some damage. In fact, it's why he believes he's hit for so much more power recently and has been making really good contact. And a lot of this has to do when getting pitches in the zone. A lot of it has been impacted by the way that he has approached those those pitches in the zone and what he's doing at the plate. He said his new approach is not necessarily looking for a pitch to hit, but he's actually hunting for a pitch to really do some damage. And you see what he's been doing over the last couple of weeks. He's really been good. And he gives a lot of credit to that, to Mike Trout hitting behind him. Now, Schanuel, since Trout has come back entering last night, is batting .280 with an .839 OPS. And that's why he likes having Mike Trout hit behind him, because Trout is helping him to see some really good pitches and get some really good pitches. And they're trying to get him out so they don't have to face Mike Trout. And Schanuel's benefiting from that. Yeah,
absolutely. And he's been great with runners in scoring position as well, as demonstrated by what we saw last night going the opposite way. Neto puts the hit and run on, which pulls the third baseman to the bag and opens up that gap. And Nolan just put it right through that hole. Now, Ray Montgomery commented on Schanuel and said, the fact that he came up so fast to the major leagues and didn't acclimate to the at-bats and didn't really collect enough at-bats to kind of learn these things he's learning now. For me, that is a natural progression. So knowing this, Mike, would you keep Trout at 3? And would this change things if Neto was behind Schanuel? What do you say?
Well, I think there is going to be a different approach to Nolan Schanuel if Zach Neto is hitting behind him rather than Mike Trout. That's just obvious. The one thing I'm really, and this is just a side note, the one thing I'm really surprised at this year, John, is how often teams have put Trout on base or quote unquote pitched around Mike Trout, because he hasn't been on the field very much in the last 5 years. Everydayers know that. We know that. To see them still giving him a tip of the cap and still respecting him that way is cool from a fan perspective, but it's interesting from a gameplay and strategy perspective, because up until last night, Trout hasn't been super fantastic on the field, right? Like, he hasn't been a huge threat on the field. The thing that he's been really good at, though, is his eye at the plate. And he has been somebody who has drawn a lot of walks. Now, the night before, he had 3 pitches out of the zone and then watched 3 pitches in the zone and didn't swing the bat. So that's part of the reason why we're thinking maybe he would be better at the number 1 position and not at the number 3 position. But then he goes and does something like he did last night and makes me look like an idiot, right?
And totally redeem yourself.
I just think that if you move Zach Neto down, you're giving that guy a whole lot more opportunity to knock in some runs. And he has been really good in those moments. And we saw it again last night. But then out of the same mouth comes this comment. He proved why he's a great leadoff hitter last night by getting on and stealing a bag and then trying to steal third, and then Schanuel knocks him in, right? Yeah. Trout's not going to do that when he gets on base. So it might be wise to just leave it as it is for a couple of reasons. Trout is not going to go buck wild on the bases like Zach Neto will. Yep. Trout's not going to steal bags like Zach Neto will. And Trout is helping Nolan Schanuel just by being present in the lineup to get really good pitches to hit. So perhaps it's better if they just leave things as they are.
Well, and you think about who's in front of Neto, and in last night's situation, it was Rengifo. And so to have him in front of Neto, then you have Rengifo's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's up there. He's got better speed than most hitters. And so when Neto does connect with the ball, then Rengifo's able to maybe try and steal a bag, or at least, take the extra base or whatnot. So I also think that having Neto at number 1, it serves him well, because the guys at 8 and 9, they don't really stink anymore, Mike. Yeah. And, if this were the ideal lineup, we'd have Christian Moore probably batting 8th or 9th too. And so you would have Christian Moore and Rengifo. I guess you got to think about where Rengifo would be if Moncada was at 3rd and Moore was at 2nd, but I'm just dreaming here. Let me dream a little bit. Okay. But the fact is that at the bottom of the order, it's not really as bad as it has been in the past. And so for Neto to have some good on-base guys in front of him, I think that that's to his benefit as well. One curveball I want to throw you.
Okay.
What if Schanuel led off and Trout bat 2nd and Neto was 3rd?
I think you got too much swing and miss at 2 and 3, 4 and 5. I think there's just way too much swing and miss. And Neto showed that last night where he swung at some really bad pitches. And in fact, in the notes, I had that written down. But then once he got a couple of hits and stole some bags, I was like, delete. And so because he was good last night, and I know he'll have some swing and miss. That's a part of his game. It's part of Trout's game, Ward's game, Soler's game, right? And so having Schanuel in the middle of that to somewhat break it up, I think is a really wise move. And that brings the conversation to what happens after Mike Trout. If Jorge Soler can just hit his expected numbers, then that puts a whole lot of pressure on the pitchers that maybe are trying to get around Trout to get to Ward and or Soler. Man, if he can just get his expected numbers and Taylor Ward can guess right, and last night he guessed right when he hit that ball to right field and knocked in 2 runs, then this becomes a really, really dangerous lineup. But the problem is they just haven't been hitting the expected numbers. And then you've got Joe Adell right after that. So you've got some threats in this lineup. And so that's why I wouldn't, at this point, mess with anything. I think I'd like to see at least play out until this weekend. And then I think over the All-Star break, you recast or reset or maybe go, you know what, we're going to give it maybe another month to see what happens.
Yeah, I think with Nolan and Trout at the top in front of Neto as well, not enough speed for those guys.
Yeah.
Now, Trout normally would have the speed, but I wanted to go back to your point about Trout, being pitched around and whatnot. This is why we want him in the lineup, Mike, because he's still a threat.
Yeah.
Even if he's just DHing. And this is what we've said in the times that, he's been off the field or he's been injured. It's like, man, if we just had him in the lineup, he would be a threat to do something, whether that's a walk or actually hit a home run or what have you. Mike Trout is always a threat. And I think people still have that respect for him because he can do some damage on you.
Well, and last night's proof of that, right? Like this is what the Angels haven't had for 5 years. They haven't had a guy this late in the season. It's July, right? They haven't had this guy in the lineup. And this is a game, John, 11-8. You take Mike Trout out of this game, it's tied at 8, right? Like he is the guy that pushed it over the line and can still be the guy that pushes it over the line. In fact, his WAR went up. He's almost tied with like Albert Pujols for career WAR and some of those other guys. And so, I mean, what he did last night was prove why he is the WAR king when it comes to that stat because of what he did. And we just haven't had that the last few years. Trout is good for a few wins that his replacement wouldn't bring. Matthew Lugo wouldn't bring this, right? Like Kyron Paris wouldn't bring this. They're not going to be the threat that Mike Trout, who's going to be a Hall of Famer, is in this lineup.
Looks like Lugo's doing pretty good in AAA. We might
that wasn't a knock on Lugo.
No. I'm saying let's let that play out because he might be back sooner than later. It'd be nice to have him back, but I know he wouldn't get all the reps that he needs. But I don't know. Let's see what this trade deadline looks like first before we have that conversation. But he could be back soon. It could be a lot of fun.
Many of you know that running a business, it's really important to get all the phone calls. And if you miss a call, it's money left on the table. And that's why you need a reliable business line. And that's why OpenPhone is the greatest resource and partner that you can find. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or on a computer. If you've ever juggled 2 phones, one's business, one's personal, you got to try to keep them separate. OpenPhone, they're solving that problem for you instantly. In fact, your whole team can share one number and can respond to customers in a shared inbox. And you're going to know who needs to handle this. There's not going to be questions about it because when the request comes in, it's going to be in a shared inbox and you're going to know, oh, John's going to handle that, or Mike's going to handle that, or we're going to ignore that. And they have an AI agent that handles after hours calls, answers commonly asked questions, and captures leads so that you never miss a customer again. And OpenPhone is offering you, our everydayers of Locked On Angels, 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. Again, openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have an existing number with another service, OpenPhone is going to help you out. They're going to port that over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers.
I got to say, before we get into this last conversation, I wanted to wear the hat I like to normally wear, the old school A, school A with a halo, because they're wearing that on the field right now. But then we lost. So I switched back to this hat for yesterday's show, and I'm going to wear it again because it's a good look hat, Mike. I wore it on Monday's show. They won. didn't wear it on Tuesday's show. They lost. So shout out to my buddy Max who designed this hat. And, if you want to know where to get it, let me know in the comments and I'll shoot you the link. There you go. Let's talk about Ray Montgomery getting ejected.
Yeah.
Mike, I don't think I've ever seen him animated ever. And, he
always really had a reason, right? Because there's always been somebody ahead of him on the bench. And so he's kind of behind the scenes doing the analytical stuff. But it was nice to see him get a little red in the face and wasn't a sunburn. He was mad, right?
Yeah, he was real mad because he was arguing with the umpire about a call that Trout got. It was a called strike at the bottom of the zone, and Trout got rung up. Trout turned around and, spoke with the umpire. You could tell he was upset, but it wasn't like Trout was not going to get ejected, right? It wasn't going to be like that. He's never been ejected, funny enough. However, Ray Montgomery was ejected. He stood up for Trout and he said, "That's awful. What a shame." That's what he said from the dugout.
That's 3 times. That is what we can share on the show. He said, "That's 3 times." Yeah. And he added some flavor to that, flavor with an F.
That's real fun. You're having a lot of fun out there. Yeah. Now, the answer to the question, how do the Angels feel about that? They were grateful. Travis d'Arnaud said any manager that gets kicked out fires up the whole team, gets them locked in. And then he mentioned Wash and, his lack of getting tossed, arguing. And d'Arnaud didn't feel like he needed to make a comparison there as he spoke to Jeff Fletcher about it. Wash hadn't been thrown out of a game since joining the Halos, but that doesn't mean he didn't have his players back, according to Ray Montgomery. He said, you want your manager to fight for you, and Wash did that too, whether he got thrown out or not. So when asked about his ejection, Montgomery said he was just reacting to Mike Trout's reaction, and that 3-2 pitch that he believed was low. Trout doesn't say much to the umpires. Sometimes you'll see him, shake his head like, I don't know, man, and walk off, but he was really upset at that call. And so Montgomery had his back, and I think that's kind of what inspired it. Right. Because it was the fact that it's Trout who doesn't get upset. And so it's kind of like, we don't rant and rave on this show all the time, but every now and then, you and I have a rant and a rave, not a dance rave, but we rant and rave. Yeah. And usually in the comments, people are like, good. I love seeing you guys fired. That's
they lean in.
Yeah. That's kind of how it feels with Mike Trout. If he's not saying something and then he does say something, it's probably a bad thing, right?
Yeah. Montgomery, and he added to this conversation, he said he was also frustrated with a 3-2 pitch that was called against Jorge Soler with 2 outs and the bases loaded earlier in the game.
That was even worse to me.
Yeah. And he was, that's kind of where he reacted because they didn't have a big reaction to that. But then when Trout was like, whoa, that was low, then Montgomery was like, okay, I need to say something here. He said there were things that got to that point that were just enough for me. He said, those guys do a great job 99% of the time. But if you're having a bad night, I'm going to be aware. And when he says those guys, he's talking about the umps, and he's trying to be kind and respectful in that moment. But he said, I was aware. Trout was aware. This was not a great call.
I'm going to make you aware, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it got me to think, John, like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer this fired up kind of manager, maybe like the Padres manager? You've brought him up a couple of times on the show, and we saw him get kicked out, and then it actually started a fire for the Padres, and they ended up coming back and winning a game earlier this year. Or do you like more of the calm demeanor type of manager? Maybe Wash is in that category. I don't know if I'd put Soch in that category, but he was a bit more calm. And I know that there's some like outliers and anomalies like Phil Nevin. We've had a lot of conversations about him on this show, right? And then Brad Ausmus, who was he just sat there. Yeah. And that's all he did. And then had his book in front. I mean, like, it was literally no emotion whatsoever. I think they had to have a heart monitor on him to see if he was alive in the dugout, right? So tell me what you prefer. Do you like the fired up guy, or do you like the calm, cool, collected, and every once in a while says something?
Yeah, I think it's less Wash that I like, because let's be honest, now that we know that Wash had some health issues, I think that you and I, and maybe our everydayers too, have all concluded like, okay, it makes sense why he wasn't out there yelling and screaming and getting fired up. He's 70. He's going to be 74 years old. Like, I get it. Like, I remember when our grandpa was 74 years old and he got mad because our pizza didn't come in time to the Pizza Hut. That was scary. Yeah. But I was worried about his health, not our pizza.
Topple over.
But I think that what I appreciate here about Ray Montgomery is that he chose his battles. He picked his battles.
Yeah.
And so to have Mike Trout's back in that moment, I think is significant because let's be honest, Mike, there have been calls more last year than this year where Nolan Schanuel thought he got ball 4 because he's got a good eye at the plate, but maybe he gave himself a little too much credit last year.
It wasn't ball 4. Yeah.
It wasn't ball 4. And so if I'm Ron Washington, I'm not going to fight for that.
No.
Like I'm not going out there to fight for that. I'm going to tell the kid, hey, dude, you can't let them beat you like that. You can't let the umpires make that decision for you. You got to foul it off. And they've started to have that conversation this year. We remember that they talked about that. Like, hey, you got to foul off those close pitches. You can't leave it up to the umpire. And they've been doing that a whole lot more, which is great.
Yeah.
Having said all of that, I think that I like someone who's going to pick their battles. Look, if I'm Mike Schilt or if I'm a Padres fan, seeing him and Dave Roberts like get into it like they did a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, yeah, fight. Right? Like, that's fun. But you know what? That's the energy level of the Padres right now. That's the energy level of the Dodgers right now. These are contending teams battling it out for their division. The Dodgers just got swept for the second time in a row, 6 games. Everything's fallen apart in Los Angeles for them, according to every Dodger fan.
Yeah.
But that's the heightened tension that you have. And so I really think it's I don't know. We always say the players need to read the room. I think the managers need to read the room too. What do you say?
Thank you. I was just going to say a great leader understands what the people that you're leading need in that moment. And so if they need you to go out and argue, go out and argue. If they need you to remain calm, cool, and collected, then you do that. It has to be what's naturally you, going back to what we talked about in the first segment with Ray Montgomery. Do what's naturally you, but you have to be able to read the room. And that takes a unique leader. That takes a unique manager. And I want to see the Angels have somebody like that on this team to be able to lead in a really significant way in strategic moments, because in those strategic moments, it will help your team to, like Travis d'Arnaud said, it'll fire us up. It'll help us to lock in. And that's really what you want to do. How can I help you lock in? What do you need from me? How can I help you to move from where you are to where you want to be, where you need to be? I'm going to do whatever is necessary. Do I need to get my face red and get in that guy's face? I'm in. Do I need to get ejected? I'm in. Do I need to calmly calm you down and say, hey, bud, don't let him beat you, right? Like that's what they need from a leader on this team. And by the way, Dodger fans, if you want to trade records, we'd be happy to trade records. Because if you're going to lose 6 in a row and you're still almost 20 games over 500, I'm happily signing up for that.
Right. Absolutely. One thing I'll go back to is, Travis d'Arnaud saying any manager that gets kicked out fires up the whole team, gets them locked in. I got to say that it feels like, let me take it back to Nevin for a minute. When Nevin got mad and he got ejected a lot.
Yeah.
And, I understood what he was trying to do, but I think there's a fine line, Mike, where he gets so mad at the umpire, you almost feel like he's mad at the team too. And so kind of some of the guys wear that as well. And so I think you just have to choose your battles wisely. If you're going to get thrown out, do it when it matters, when it counts, and when you need to fire up the team, just like it did for Travis d'Arnaud and the dugout the other night.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. You can find the show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels. Connect with Mike and I on Twitter and Instagram at Super Halo Bros. Mike, we do have a game tonight against the Rangers. It's the last one of this series. And so here's the thing. We got a big event coming up on Sunday.
Yeah.
It's the draft.
Yep.
And the Angels have the number 2 pick. So what we are going to do on Friday is spend time going through the names, the players, all the questions of who are the Angels going to take at 2?
Yeah.
Who do they take if the Nationals take their pick at 1? And so instead of having our 4 takeaways from tonight's game, we're going to spend time on the draft. So if you want to catch instant reaction, of course, we have Gavin Carlson, who hosts the postcast after the game, and he goes live on YouTube. Gavin, again, the busiest man in podcasting. I love to call him that. And so, yes, he will have the recap. He'll have the instant reaction after the game is over. He'll go live. And then on tomorrow's show, we're going to do a deep dive into the top prospects and the top draft picks who could be selected. We're going to share our thoughts on that tomorrow. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Friday.
I want my pizza, and I want it now!
That was the exact words of our grandpa.